It was an ordinary Saturday morning in my quiet suburban neighborhood. The sky was clear, birds chirping in the distance, and I had just brewed a fresh cup of coffee. I'd planned to spend the day catching up on some reading and maybe trimming. The hedge out front, nothing out of the ordinary. I parked my car, my pride and joy. A silver 2019 Honda Accord right in front of my house, as I always did. It was legally parked, fully within the curb boundaries, and nowhere near any fire hydrant or driveway. I double-checked, as usual. I've always been the type of guy who follows rules and minds my business, especially with the HOA breathing down everyone's neck around here. I had just settled onto the porch with my coffee when I heard the screech of tires, followed by a loud, sickening crunch. My heart dropped. That was definitely the sound of metal on metal land. It was close. Too close. I shot up and rushed to the street. That's when I saw Karen, my neighbor, from 3 houses down, sitting behind the wheel of her oversized Cadillac Escalade, now halfway shoved into the back of my parked car. My Honda's rear bumper was crushed inward, the taillight shattered, and pieces of the rear panel littered the asphalt. I stood there, stunned. She didn't even get out at first. She sat in the driver's seat like nothing had happened, fumbling with her phone. It wasn't until I approached that she slowly rolled down her window, sunglasses perched on her nose like she was above it all. "Everything okay?" I asked, keeping my tone as even as I could. Karen didn't even look at the damage. "Why would you park so close to the corner?" she snapped. I blinked. "What? I'm parked legally." "That's not even a corner. You shouldn't leave. Your car in the street like that? It's a hazard," she said, then finally stepped out of her SUV. She looked at the damage with a wrinkle of her nose. It's as if my car was the one that hit hers. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Karen, you reversed straight into my parked car. You need to give me your insurance," I said. That's when the yelling started. She launched into a full-blown rant about how I had poor spatial awareness, how my car wasn't visible from her driveway again, 3 houses away, and how she was just trying to do a 3-point turn when I recklessly left an obstacle in the road. An obstacle. My legally parked car. She refused to give me her insurance. I had already started taking photos of the damage with my phone, documenting everything: my car's position, the damage, her car's damage, even a video of her still ranting at me on the sidewalk. She tried to block my camera at one point, demanding I respect her privacy. "Privacy? You just hit my car." She huffed and finally marched back into her house, slamming the door behind her. I called the non-emergency police line. An officer came out about 30 minutes later, took down a report, and noted that the car was clearly parked legally and hadn't moved. He knocked on her door to get her statement. She gave some vague excuse about her brakes, acting up, and didn't elaborate. The officer handed me a report number and said I'd likely need to go through my insurance unless she willingly provided hers. Fine. I thought I'd let the insurance companies sort it out. I had a dashcam, and although it didn't catch her hitting the car directly, it showed my vehicle sitting motionless for hours before the impact. I submitted the claim and figured that would be the end of it. It's annoying, but manageable. Accept it. Wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. 3 days later, I received a letter in the mail from a law firm I didn't recognize. I thought maybe it was some HOA thing until I opened it. Karen was suing me. The letter claimed that I had negligently parked my car in such a way that it obstructed traffic and caused significant emotional distress and vehicular damage. To her, she was asking for damages to her SUV and an additional amount for psychological trauma from the alleged accident. I sat on my front steps with the letter in my hands, rereading it over and over in disbelief. It felt like a joke, except it wasn't. Karen had really taken this to the next level. I texted a friend of mine who's a paralegal and sent him the letter. His response was immediate. "That's insane. But don't ignore it. You'll need to respond legally." I couldn't believe it. I was the one who got hit tanned. Now I was being blamed for it. That's when I decided, if Karen wanted to drag me into court, she'd regret it. I had every intention of proving just how absurd her case was, and showing the whole neighborhood who really caused the damage. This wasn't just about a car anymore. It was about principle. I always thought lawsuits were things that happened to other people. You hear stories someone gets sued for slipping on a wet floor, or a neighbor goes ballistic over a fence built an inch too far. But I never imagined I'd be the target of a lawsuit for being the victim in a simple fender bender. And yet, there I was, holding a legal notice from Karen's attorney, accusing me of being at fault. The official complaint was laughable if it hadn't been real. It said I intentionally and negligently parked in a way that obstructed the public right-of-way, and that I created an unsafe condition which resulted in damage and trauma. For her, I took a deep breath and called my insurance company first. They were already aware of the accident from my previous claim. But when I told them Karen had filed a lawsuit against me, the rep paused. "Wait, she's suing you?" "Yes, for damages and emotional distress." There was a long silence before she muttered, "That's a new one." They assigned a legal rep to the case, and I also started looking for my own attorney. I wasn't about to let Karen bully her way through this. The real kicker: her lawsuit demanded compensation for loss of vehicle usability. Because get this, she claimed my car snuck up behind hers while she was trying to reverse. According to her statement, she hadn't even seen my car until it was too late, which she took as evidence that I was improperly parked. Luckily, I had multiple lines of defense. Dashcam footage, it didn't show the impact, but it clearly showed my car was parked in the exact same spot for hours without moving. Photos I had taken, pictures from every angle, showing my car was fully within the curb boundaries in a spot used by residents all the time. Witnesses? A neighbor across the street, Mr. Henson, had seen the whole thing. He told me that he saw Karen backing up recklessly while talking on speakerphone. Police report: the officer hadn't assigned blame, but he did write that my vehicle was parked legally and hadn't been moved. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that Karen wasn't just trying to win money, she wanted to win control. She was the type who liked everything her way. She ran the HOA board like a dictatorship, tried to ban kids from riding bikes on the sidewalks, and once tried to have a neighbor fined for having too many potted plants. Now she'd turned her sights on me. A few days later, I had my first meeting with my lawyer, a guy named Chris who looked way too relaxed for someone who made a living in courtrooms. But he was sharp. After I explained everything and showed him the documents, he leaned back and grinned. "This isn't a lawsuit, it's a tantrum in legal form," he said. "But we're going to treat it seriously. Because if we crush her case, we can push for legal fees and make sure she thinks twice before doing this to anyone else." We filed a formal response, denying all allegations and attaching my evidence. Chris even reached out to Mr. Henson to draft a witness statement, but Karen wasn't backing down. In fact, she doubled down. One day while I was mowing the lawn, she walked by with her tiny dog, clearly taking a longer route than usual just to pass my house. She stopped, glared at me, and said loudly, "Some people just don't know when to admit they're wrong." I paused and turned off the mower. "Is that what you tell yourself in the mirror every morning?" She gasped and stormed off. The next week, I caught wind that Karen had started spreading rumors around the neighborhood. One neighbor said she claimed I lured her into hitting my car as part of some insurance scam. Another said she was telling people I had anger issues and once threatened her. All completely false, but that's how Karen works, stir up enough confusion and people start to believe it. It honestly hurt. I had always tried to stay neutral in neighborhood politics. I helped shovel snow for an elderly couple across the street, attended block parties, and never filed a single complaint with the HOA, even though I had plenty of reasons to. Now, people looked at me sideways. Some nodded politely, but I could tell their smiles were tighter. Others just avoided eye contact. The stress was real. I couldn't sleep well. I kept imagining worst-case scenarios. What if the court sided with her? What if I got slapped with a huge fine? Would my insurance go up? Could she mess with my record? But Chris reassured me constantly. Facts win cases, not drama. Still, Karen kept trying to escalate. She filed a motion to speed up the trial. She showed up to one hearing in a neck brace in, though she had walked her dog every day since the accident like nothing had happened. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call her out publicly, but I held my tongue. I kept collecting receipts. I kept documenting everything. Then came the pre-trial hearing, a moment that flipped everything on its head. Chris had subpoenaed footage from a neighbor's security cam, which faced part of the street. It hadn't even crossed my mind before, but thankfully, Mr. Henson's system had picked up the moment of impact, and it couldn't be clearer. The footage showed Karen backing up too quickly, while looking away from the road, likely checking her phone or fiddling with her console. She made no attempt to slow down. No glance back, no awareness. She just plowed into the car, and the cherry on top, her dog was in her lap the whole time. Chris smiled like a shark when we got the footage. This, my friend, is our ace. The court date finally arrived. Despite everything leading up to a dust lawsuit, the threats, the passive-aggressive dog-walking route past my house, I was calm. Nervous, sure, but there was something about knowing the truth was on my side. That gave me confidence. I had my dashcam footage, photos, police report, a solid lawyer, and best of all, the neighbor's security camera footage. It was the smoking gun we didn't expect, but it turned the tide completely. Karen showed up to court with her attorney, looking like she was auditioning for a courtroom drama. She wore all black, including sunglasses indoors, and was once again wearing that ridiculous neck brace. It was like a performance, and I had front row seats. The judge was an older man who didn't seem easily impressed by theatrics. Good, her lawyer went first, explaining how my car had created an unsafe obstruction and caused Karen significant emotional distress and physical harm due to my reckless and negligent parking. He even claimed Karen suffered mild whiplash and that she had difficulty sleeping ever since the incident. He used phrases like emotional trauma and dangerous public hazard. Then they submitted a photo of my parked car only. It was zoomed in and cropped in such a way that it looked like I was blocking more road than I actually had. It was clearly manipulated to exaggerate things. Chris immediately objected, stating we had full photo and video evidence that would counter that narrative. When it was our turn, Chris walked the judge through the evidence step by step. He was calm, respectful, and confident. He started with the basics, Your Honor. The defendant's vehicle was parked legally, within HOA regulations, on a public street where parking is permitted. We have photographic evidence showing no obstructions, no signage violations, and no indication that this was in any way unsafe. Then came the dashcam footage, showing my car hadn't moved all day. Then my neighbor, Mr. Henson, was called in to testify. He walked up in his Sunday best and spoke clearly. I was drinking coffee on my porch when I saw it happen. Karen was backing out quickly, not checking behind her. She didn't look once. She hit the car so hard, it bounced.
Was
The defendant's car moving? The judge asked. No, sir. It was parked there all morning. Hadn't budged. Then came the final blow. Chris introduced the security cam footage. The screen was wheeled into the courtroom, and the clip was played in front of everyone. There it was. Karen reversing way too fast, with her little dog in her lap, clearly not looking over her shoulder. Her SUV rammed into the rear of my Honda like a wrecking ball. The whole court could see the impact, and the moment of realization on her face, priceless. The room went dead silent. Even the judge leaned forward slightly and said, "Play that." Again, we did. The second time, Karen turned red. Her lawyer leaned over and whispered something urgently, and she started shaking her head. She was unraveling. Then Chris hit the judge with our final weapon, Your Honor. We'd also like to present evidence that Ms., he made sure not to call her Karen out loud, has a history of HOA-related disputes with several neighbors, including at least 2 formal complaints filed for harassment and misuse of HOA authority. We believe this supports a pattern of manipulative behavior and false accusations. Karen's lawyer objected, but the judge allowed it. At this point, Karen broke. She started raising her voice, not yelling exactly, but her tone turned bitter and defensive. That video doesn't prove I was negligent. He parked that car where no one could see it. I mean, look at the color. It blended into the shadows. Who even buys silver cars anymore? The judge held up a hand. Ms. Please. Refrain from shouting in court. Her lawyer put his hand on her arm to calm her down, but she shook him off. Chris wrapped things up perfectly. Your Honor, my client has gone through weeks of harassment, false rumors in his community, and legal stress, all while being the actual victim in this incident. We respectfully request a dismissal of all claims against him and that Ms. be held responsible for court costs and damages to my client's vehicle. The judge leaned back, folded his hands, and took a long pause. I've reviewed the footage. I've heard the witness. This is not only a case lacking merit, borders on malicious intent. The plaintiff's claims are unfounded, and frankly, this court is not the place for personal vendettas. All charges are dismissed. Boom. The courtroom was still for a second, and then Karen loudly scoffed, grabbed her purse, and stormed out without even looking at anyone. Her lawyer followed, looking more embarrassed than anything. Outside the courtroom, Chris clapped me on the shoulder. Textbook takedown. You handled it perfectly. I thanked Mr. Henson again and promised to buy him dinner sometime. He just laughed and said she won't show her face for a while. Not after that video. And he was right. Back in the neighborhood, things shifted almost overnight. The people who had been distant suddenly became chatty again. I got everything from, "Hey, sorry I believed her," to, "Man, we were rooting for you." Karen, she went quiet. She stopped walking her dog past my house. Rumor had it she stepped down from the HOA board, citing personal health issues. And while I didn't dance on her downfall, I couldn't deny it felt satisfying. The repairs to my Honda were covered in full by her insurance company, no less. And since I won the case, I wasn't out of pocket for the legal fees either. In fact, I walked away with a bit extra in damages for all the time and stress she caused. I never wanted drama. I never wanted a courtroom battle. When someone backs into your life, literally and figuratively, and tries to flip the blame, you don't just let it slide. Sometimes standing your ground isn't just about the car. It's about making sure people like Karen know you don't get too bully your neighbors and walk away clean. Not this time.